All right. Well, welcome back to Always on the Hunt. This week's guest is Kurt DeYoung, who is a 20-plus year veteran in the AV industry with a track record of driving results by aligning sales and marketing, building strategic alliances, and navigating complex verticals like retail, corporate, entertainment, and healthcare. Currently, Kurt is the CRO at Nanolumens, playing an instrumental part in their turnaround and growth. With that being said, let me welcome Kurt DeYoung to Always on the Hunt. Welcome, Kurt.
Yeah, good to be here, Leo, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You know, I was really excited and looking forward to this episode because obviously we work closely together a number of times, and feel like you're somebody who has a very unique perspective of this industry and can bring a lot of insight and value to the listeners. So I'm excited to get, this conversation kind of flowing. Kurt, why don't we start by talking a little bit more about your background and how you got into the AV industry and go from there.
Yeah, sure. It's been a journey in the AV business. I think my first job out of college was with an AV company, an AV manufacturer, and really small company in Newport News, Virginia, called Enview, Enview Corporation, which has a lot of alumni in the industry still, and run into former colleagues, but that's really where I got started. And then I had a quick stint with an AV company, an AV reseller company, an integrator, and then I took a little bit of a break. I got an opportunity to work for a private equity company that was focused on technology, and worked in that industry or that company for 4 or 5 years. Spent a few years in the healthcare business, and interestingly enough, working for a hospital system brought me to Barco, where I spent 16 years in a number of different roles, and then I found my way to Nanolumens over the past 4 years. So it's been kind of in and out of the AV business, and that's where I started, and kind of where my heart was, and found my way back into the industry in a unique, probably different way. So it's been fun.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's the AV industry, right? Everybody somehow or another always comes back, right? Few people even ever leave, but same with me, right? Like I sold my integration company, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go try something new, and here I am recruiting for the AV industry. So,
right,
it can kind of never leave. So 16 years at Barco, that was quite the run. Let's talk about that. Like, how'd you get there? And you got there through the medical side, and then interesting, and then you grew the proverbial corporate ladder there. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it was interesting looking for companies that were kind of involved in technology, but also involved in the healthcare business. And Barco really stood out as a really interesting choice. And for those of you that don't know, Barco has a tremendously successful, kind of very innovative division within the organization that focuses on medical imaging. And so for a number of years, we were speaking with doctors, radiologists, cardiologists, mammography specialists, as well as surgeons about imaging technology and those types of applications, and really broke some barriers, like really introduced some very interesting kind of groundbreaking technologies. And it's an interesting business. It was going through a lot of transition during that period of time, and it really afforded me a terrific opportunity to get involved and learn a lot about new technologies, but really change the perspective on who your customer is, right, and what your product message is, because in that market, you're really about saving lives. I mean,
right.
You're talking about clinical, operational, and economic efficiencies that you can bring to hospital systems, and that was an interesting ability to kind of add value and feel like you were doing something incredibly useful every time you woke up and got back to work and started talking with clients. You were really about patient safety, right? That was the core.
Right. And And the imaging products that you guys were, it was the monitors plus it was the storage and like all the networking, right? If I remember correctly.
It's a little bit on the radiology side. It was really the primary diagnostic radiology monitor. So, instead of printing film, like radiologists were looking at digital images on very high quality, high resolution monitors. When I started, they were grayscale. They were black and white. There was no color. Color became something that came into the industry a little bit later, but the storage backends and the interpretive software that is used were all provided by companies like General Electric, Agfa, Philips, some of the larger systems integrators that are focused on the healthcare industry. And but we worked hand in hand with companies like that, as well as small and national IT resellers that worked with those hospital systems, because as you can imagine, the IT infrastructure for a healthcare institution that has 10 hospitals, hundreds of clinics is pretty robust and pretty complicated. So a lot of different people to chat with and build consensus across when doing hospital sales.
It's interesting because like as you sell to different clients and different verticals, you need to learn their business. Like did you feel like you got like you went through med school there and had to like really understand all the complex healthcare?
Well, it's interesting that I think that was one of my favorite stories that I used to tell new reps that I hired at Barco was I didn't have a clue, right? I didn't know. And when I worked in the hospital system in Virginia, I was running occupational health, right? And that was more of a service business to local corporations and plants and factories and those types of things, But when I got into the radiology business for Barco, it was a clinical sale, and you really had to understand specialties for radiologists, what they were interested in seeing based on their subspecialty. So I took it upon myself. I made very good friends with this gentleman. His name is Dr. Carlos James Dow at Georgetown University Med Center, and he was one of my first big customers. And I asked him, I'm like, Dr. Dow, I don't know what I'm doing. Can I sit in the back of your radiology room for the next week? And I won't say a word. I just want to listen to you teach the residents. I want to hear the language. I want to understand what radiologists are doing on a daily basis. What is their life? What is the life in the radiology room? Where are the distractions coming from? Really to understand what I was doing. And that was an invaluable experience. I don't think a lot of sales representatives took a week out of their week and sat in the back of a room and just banged away at emails. And but really, I wanted to learn to become a better professional.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's something that I think not enough salespeople do, which is to really go out there and learn your customers and understand them, understand what helps them and how they run their business and where your solution can fit and help them, rather than just go and try to sell your features, right? And
we stopped selling features in that business a long time ago. It was you really had to marry the message, like what is going to benefit a radiologist and what are they concerned about, because they don't really care about the tech.
Yeah,
they didn't really care about how bright a monitor was or, the resolution or any of that sort of thing. They were very focused on, okay, how does this enable me to do my job more effectively and accurately every day? And how can you ensure or prove to me really at that level that the image that's on the screen is what the modality, captured. And that's what we were focused on, is really understanding how the clinical benefits were very helpful for that radiologist, and the work that we did in the lab had a direct translation into better medical care for those radiologists.
Good. Yeah. Look, you got to be able to talk, right? And people want to buy from people they trust, right? And it always amazes me when, because people try to sell to me all the time. And like, if you don't understand, what we do or how we do things, it's not really interesting to buy from it, and you don't believe that you're going to get that support either. Yeah. So you moved over to Nanolumens a few years back. Is it 4 years today? Is that what I saw?
It is actually, oddly, yeah.
Congrats.
This is kind of kind of good timing.
Yeah.
It's 4 years today that I joined the business, and it was a really good opportunity. After being in the healthcare business at Barco, I ran marketing for a year. I ran our AV channel business for a few years. I got a lot of experience across the broad spectrum of products that we were representing in the market, and it was pretty clear that even 4 years ago, and even more so now, that direct view LED was going to be a technology that was going to go through massive growth over the next 5-10 years. And Nanolumens presented a really cool opportunity with a really great person, Nate Corsina, who was one of my former managers at Barco, and he's our CEO. And it was kind of a good time to try something different, to get uncomfortable, to get way out of my comfort zone, and it's worked out pretty well. Like we're doing quite well.
Yeah, I mean, look, you guys were, you and Nate came in, and Nate's a great guy. I really love working with him and appreciate him as who he is and his style. And but you guys came in at the time. Nano was in a little bit of a tailspin, right? So you guys kind of turned that around and strengthened it and right the ship, right? So talk about that experience. Like a turnaround is never easy.
No. Change management is really challenging, and it can be really frustrating, I think, for a lot of people. You have to be incredibly patient. You have to be very consistent in kind of what your vision is, and stay with it, right? And it's not easy. It's very, very difficult. But I think
what makes it difficult? What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys had to overcome?
Well, it's kind of easy to react to, like, something happens today, right? And this is terrible, and it basically becomes noise, right? I mean, it's not, an issue today is not necessarily mean that you're doing anything wrong. Your strategy is incorrect. But the perseverance to say, okay, we're just going to push this noise out of the way. We know what we're doing as a business, and that could be, we lost a demo, we didn't win an opportunity, partner didn't react the way that we expected them to our corporate message. I mean, there's a whole host of challenges that a seller or a leader, in my case, are going to encounter on a daily basis, and you have to just have faith that you're doing the right things. And I've always been a believer, like, there's a long-term vision in what you're doing, and it's going to change year to year, but the core basis, probably is pretty consistent, right? And our core basis, and one of the main things that we were focused on is making Nanolumens one of the most trusted brands of LED in the Americas, right? And the LED business can be a little intimidating for people that aren't completely read up on it, and specifications can be really murky in our business, and you don't really know what you're buying or what the outcome is going to be, and purchases have a tendency to be pretty big, right? It's an expensive technology, so our ambition was to become the most trusted brand in the market, and demonstrate that trust with partners, because we transact directly with channel partners in a very transparent way, right? And I think that has really translated well to partners. And Nay and I have obviously both have good reputations within the audiovisual industry, and we've invested a lot in that. So when we said, hey, this is how we're going to market today, or these are the promises or the commitments that we're making to you as our customer, I think people listened and they understood, and they may have had an experience that wasn't, didn't align with what we were saying in the past, but I think today they understand that we've demonstrated that capability and that commitment to our partnerships. So
when do you keep on the path, and when do you pivot? Like what has to happen for you to sit there and say, all right, let's trust the process and let's keep going, versus saying, we might have to go a different pathway or a different direction here?
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? It is. But I think the thing that I've found that's very helpful is you have professionals that are in your in your circle. Like you have a couple. I mean, I'm sure that you do. I know I do. A couple of people that are in my circle that I truly trust, right? And I value their opinion. And I understand they're going to tell me the truth. They're not going to tell me what I want to hear, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've always used, 2 or 3 people that are, in my circle. Some are inside the industry. Some are completely in different industries. They're not in the audiovisual business. And that's where I kind of like, okay, this is what I'm seeing, test the theory, understand whether they think, I'm on track, off track. And if enough data points point that I'm off track or we're off the path that we want to be on, don't be afraid to pivot, right? Yeah. And don't be afraid to, retrench and go, mea culpa, not the best idea. I know it's happened to me a few times in my career, and that's okay. But I think that's one of the things within your teams also, which is really powerful sometimes, is to admit that, hey, my judgment was in error, right? I didn't do the best job here, or my thought process was flawed, but we spotted it. Now we're going to pivot, slightly. You're probably not changing your ultimate goal, but how you're going to get there, right? Is the pivot, and that's okay to do. And I think it's a really powerful message within your own organizations to say, hey, I don't have all the answers, right? And I'm just a person, but the collective team really needs to believe in this, and we're going to do this. Like the collective group is going to focus on this. And if you're going down the wrong path and you continue to do it, like shame on you. But if you're going down the wrong path and you spot an obstacle that you just think is going to be insurmountable, pivot, change. Figure out a way to get around it, and you'll end up finding the success route.
Yeah, and it starts with the humility, right? To be able to admit when you're wrong and make a mistake. We all do. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has that crystal ball, right? But yet you unfortunately, a lot of organizations have leaders who are just stubborn, right? And they can never be wrong. And then next thing you know, the company's really hurting.
Yep. You got to keep your ears open to a lot of different opinions. And that's a key piece of advice for young professionals coming up. Like listen as much as you possibly can. Right.
The old 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? But, you also mentioned about having your own personal advisory board, right? It sounds like it's something that's a little informal, but you still have it. When did you start using that as a strategy, and how has that helped you over the years?
Oh, probably back in my early 30s. Like I saw a lot of people that were in my peer group that were doing really well. And maybe they were a little bit ahead of me, or I just felt like they were more successful in some way, shape, or form. Right. And I developed this knack of developing people that could, help me in my career, and whether they were in my industry, out of my industry, if they were smart and they understood complexities of business. And I don't think many businesses are all that different. I think you always run into the same sorts of challenges. Mm-hmm. And I always found it very helpful. And some were like, old colleagues, and some were, new colleagues, right? But I think I learned that pretty early, because I had an executive coach. One of my companies kind of hired an executive coach to sit with me, a couple of weeks, a month. And he had been a former CEO, and the learnings that I took from him early in my career and as a young adult kind of really helped, lay that groundwork of not making the mistake that I have to know everything. There's tons of really smart people in your teams, and you should be looking for people that are way smarter than you are when you're hiring. That's a huge piece of advice, because the people around you, if you're hiring quality, they have opinions, they have perspectives, and you should be listening to them.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you had an executive coach. I try to bring up this analogy all the time. It's like, you look at like the NFL and Patrick Mahomes has a quarterback coach, and nobody's going to say the quarterback coach is a better quarterback than the QB himself, right? But he has that coach for that extra perspective, the different angles, just viewing things differently and kind of seeing things that maybe Patrick's missing or whatever. But obviously they all have coaches, they all have trainers, they all have, and it's amazing how much support successful people have, and yet people are still too stubborn to ask for help.
Well, I think sometimes there's like maybe they're embarrassed. I don't know, but
ego
to ask, to ask for help, right? Yeah. And I think now there's I have people in my personal life that are very, very good friends, and they're very successful as well, and they've got great perspectives, and they see a ton of different businesses and go to markets, and I've adapted a lot of the things that I've learned from that my peer group into my current business, and I don't think I would have been as successful as I have been without taking from others and incorporating their best practices, whether it's organization, lifestyle, creating work-life balance, focusing on your fitness, because it has a tremendous amount of impact on your professional life. I mean, all of those things are really important, but you have to kind of be able to listen and listen to alternate opinions about what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's the old surround yourself with successful people. If you're with 5 million years, you'll be the sixth, right? And it's like one of those mindsets of just you talk to smart people who are successful, and then they'll give you insights that you'll figure out how to apply toward your business and how you do things. Your growth at Barco, right? Was a pretty good climb, right? For as I mentioned earlier, the proverbial ladder. What did obviously you talked about the coaching and the peer group and so forth like that. But what were you doing there that you felt made you stand out and able to really grow?
I think results are always going to be one of those indicators where if you're performing at a high level, organizations are going to look for ways to leverage your talent, right? And so I always focused on trying to do the best job that I could, right? In whatever role I was in, whether I was early or late in my time at Barco. But I think the other thing was I was always open for change, right? And someone came to me at one point and said, "Hey, we're thinking about researching the surgery market because we're not in that market right now, and there seems to be a big pent up demand, and people are going to 4K is going to be the next big thing in surgery, and we feel like we've got some core technology that could be really valuable." And I said, "I'm in. Sign me up. When do I start?" And that started a 1.5-year journey of basically doing research and talking to people in that segment of the market. I completely moved away from the radiology business and only focused on the surgical integration market, and was talking to people at Karl Storz and Stryker and Olympus, and meeting with all these companies and doing research and understanding what they thought the next big thing would be, and bringing it back into the company and interacting with my colleagues in Belgium at headquarters. And it was just an opportunity for me to go, yeah, I want to learn something else. I want to try something else. And I think that was the biggest thing, that enabled me to kind of move through the organization was, I had a great manager that I love to work with, Mike Sklar. He gave me this opportunity to kind of bump around a little bit. And then at the end of that period of time, I hadn't been in marketing for a really long time. And the same thing happened. Nate Corsino said, "Hey, would you like to run our marketing business for the Americas?" And I'm like, I'm really uncomfortable, but yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to sharpen those skills and go back to, what I went to school for. And I'm interested. So I learned a tremendous amount about marketing in a very short amount of time from the colleagues that were in the Barco North America marketing team. But quite frankly, I wasn't qualified to be in that position. But I basically did what I could do, which was let's reorganize our practice, right? And let's try to be more efficient in our spending of, our budgets, and let's get aligned to our product teams, like those product groups that are going to market and are really the experts on, customer needs and things like that. So even though I wasn't a particularly good copywriter, I didn't know a whole lot about web design. I learned a lot about GDPR very quickly, because that's when that started to become very common. But I knew how to run a business, right? And I just looked at marketing as a business, and relied on the marketing professionals to do the hard work of marketing, which is much harder than most people give give them credit for.
100%. So what do you think Nay saw in you that he wanted you to take on that challenge and take that role on?
I think Nay and I always had a very good relationship. We spoke the truth to one another, and I think that was first and foremost, right? I mean, when he's as a CEO and you're looking for somebody to come in and run the commercial side of a business, you have to have a very high degree of trust that you are turning over a lot of control to an individual within the business. And I think that was the basis, is that we trusted each other. We trusted each other's vision, and we knew that we had a really good base business. We had good technology. Mm-hmm. We had a creative reputation in the industry. We still are better at design, in my opinion, than any other LED company that's in the market. And I think our visions kind of align. Like there's a good approach for a U.S. business that does a really good job in the tech side of things and understands the tech, and isn't trying to sell the most, but they're trying to do the coolest projects that are in the industry. Yeah. And I think we've really done a good job of that over the past couple of years. But I think it all comes back to having a mutual level of understanding between myself and Nay, and then an underlying team that's now supporting me as we kind of continue to grow this business.
Yeah, I was actually asking about like why Nay trusted you with the marketing role at Barco, but both, right? I think the answer it ultimately comes down to trust, right? That you've developed, a relationship with him where he can trust you and know that you're going to perform.
Yeah, I think transparency is critical, right? And that's one of the things that I've always, tried to be, whether the information is or the news is good or bad. I'm going to give you the truth, and that's just, that's how I was raised, right? Be transparent and get the bad news out there, or get the good news out there, and then let's figure out a way to solve for the problem. But transparency is really, really critical.
Huge. I used to tell my staff, I'm like, I could deal with good news, I could even deal with bad news, but I can't deal with surprises, right? So just let me know. I'll deal with it. I'll process it. I'll get over it. But if I'm surprised and blindsided by it, then it's a problem. So let's talk about marketing and sales a little bit. As a CRO, you're responsible for all of it, and marketing these days has to be a lot more challenging than it was, in previous decades, right? Everyone's bombarded with advertisements and marketing, be it traditional advertisements, social media, emails, drip campaigns, cold calls. AI now is having robo SDRs, stuff like that. So, what works? What works these days?
Well, I mean, we're trying it all, right? I mean, and I think one of the big challenges with marketing is that it moves quick. It's very tech infused, the marketing platforms that are out there, and making sure that you look at your marketing tech stack, and you've got partners that can help you with these things. It's really difficult unless you're a specialist, as I found it, right? And we don't have a huge team either. And I think this certainly is probably very different for big organizations that have massive marketing machines, right? Mm-hmm. These people are constantly able to take advantage of continuing education opportunities, to stay current on the platforms, and are participating in consistent re-education around trends and data trends that are in the industry, right? As a smaller business, I think what we've been focused on is finding some really great nimble vendors to help us, right? So So we've found specialists in particular areas of expertise, people that are super familiar with email-based marketing programs and understand the platforms incredibly well, and being able to measure, help us, do lead scoring for intent, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got some people that help us do that. We've got some people that are really on the cutting edge of SEO and refining our website, to make it perform better from an SEO perspective. And when we got into the SEO side, man, I was shocked how many data points Google looks at. And
it's crazy.
From somebody on the outside, you would just be like, well, it can't be that difficult. And it's incredibly complicated. And to stay on the cutting edge of that, like, you have to be doing that every day, and understanding what those companies are doing. And so we've really focused on employing some incredibly talented agencies that work on our behalf and help us be a successful marketing organization, and just make sure that they understand, where we're going as an organization. They've got a very good understanding of our, 12, 18-month product roadmap. They understand kind of what makes us different in a big industry with lots of competition. And we trust the experts to help us with, employing the best techniques and technologies that frankly change every year. And you have to have that comfort, but it takes us a while to interview them and select. But once we're in, and we've got some long-term engagements with these companies at this point.
Which is great. So basically the answer is, get the pros, right? Get the best and brightest out there. In the intro, we talked about the different verticals that you've focused on in the past. And, obviously medical was another one that you had a lot of success with. When you approach all these different verticals, with your marketing, are you customizing for each one? Or are you guys just, how are you handling that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you obviously your viewer, your audience has to see themselves in your messaging, right? And so we do a lot of interviews with companies that are in the industries or in those segments. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll talk to retailers about the messaging that we're putting out in front of retailers. We obviously speak with a lot of experienced design companies and content creation businesses. So we have some good kind of sounding boards in those industries. But yeah, I think you have to kind of allow your audience to see themselves in the language that you're using and how you're talking about the technology that you're offering in whatever vertical you're talking about.
Yeah. And I know the new trend is like the account-based marketing, right? Where you got to get really granular there. Like that just seems really, really like a lot of upfront work.
It's a ton of work to figure out your personas and who are your target accounts, who are your target businesses. Are they on your website? Are they not on your website? How do you attract them? There's a lot to sink your teeth into on the ABM side.
But you guys see the return in that, like, that's definitely the way to go.
It's definitely a long-term strategy, right? It takes a while to attract them, but you can see, in our systems, we can see how many times we're interacting with a particular account. It may be 5 individuals, it may be 100 individuals over an account, but we can see all those touch points and figure out exactly, is it working or is it not working, right? And what technique was most effective? Was it a marketing message? Was it an email? Was it a web banner? Was it some type of social media campaign that's out there on LinkedIn? Or was it just a basic old school telephone call? And we employ, all of those types of techniques to try to attract companies to Nanolumens so that we can, tell them how we're a little bit different than the market.
Have you started using AI at all?
Not yet. We have interviewed a number of vendors that are kind of in that space. A lot of that technology looks really interesting. So I think we're going to probably jump in with at least 1 foot here in the next quarter after we complete a couple more interviews with some of these potential vendors for us.
Well, I'm going to have to follow up with you offline about that, because that's something that I've been looking into as well. And thank you for indulging me I'm a little bit of a marketing geek, myself. Like I love the whole thoughts of marketing and how companies approach it. And something that obviously as a business owner myself that I spend a lot of time thinking about too. Let's talk about hiring. Obviously, your team. I've been fortunate enough to help you with a few hires. So let's talk about your team. Let's talk about how you go about hiring. What's your strategy? What are your thoughts and what works for you and even what doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm always interested to talk with anybody. So I've always, been of the mindset that I'm always interviewing. It doesn't matter whether I have positions open or not open, but you never know who you're going to run into, or what candidate you might come past your desk that you may really enjoy, and you may have kind of pass the opportunity to speak with them because you didn't necessarily have an open role. Now, I will always tell the candidate, I'm happy to speak with you. I don't necessarily have a role today, but we should know each other, and to be, completely fair with everybody. But I think the main thing is, understanding who the types of people that you work well with, the types of personalities that you can see yourself getting along with very well. And because this employee relationship is, you have to build trust, right? And you have to be able to build a long-standing relationship, and people are not numbers. Employees are not numbers, in my opinion. And so the personal connection is first and foremost, in my opinion. Can I see myself going on a road trip with this person without strangling them? Like that's got to be one of the criteria. The other is just like a general level of curiosity, right? Are you interested in learning new things? Do you want to challenge yourself? And just, and it doesn't have to be somebody that comes from your industry either. Like I've had a lot of success hiring people outside of our core market, whatever that market was. Mm-hmm. And they did great because they were curious, they were interested, they wanted to learn new things, they were intelligent, and they were good people. Yeah, people, right? Like they were good communicators, and I think those are the things that are always kind of top of my list.
Good. And I also always notice that you have your strategy, right? You have your hiring plan, like where your headcounts are, and that's something that. But I do appreciate that you're always willing to talk to somebody and plant those seeds and hopefully build that for the future. When you think about your career, and a lot of the advice that I've heard from you today is be adaptable, recognize when an opportunity is given to you and take it, right? Take a risk and grow from there. What other advice can you give a young aspiring AV professional that might want to be a CRO one day? How do they get there? Like, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think you have to work hard. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be willing to put in the time that's required to be successful, and you have to put forth the effort. And if it doesn't come easy for you, you're going to have to put in the extra time. Like there are certain things, and it's interesting, like certain parts of your job are not going to be excellent. You're not going to love them. And a friend of mine, in the industry just told me about a book that I actually ordered yesterday on Amazon, which is like the 6 geniuses of work. There are 6 types of work that everybody kind of gets involved in, but there are certain ones that you gravitate towards and they provide energy, right? Right. And there are certain other ones that you have to do that suck the life out of you. Yeah. And I think the challenge for a lot of younger people, and I see it in my own kids, right? I've got a 21 and a 19-year-old, and sometimes they're like, "This is dumb. I shouldn't have to do this." And I'm like, "Hey, if that's what the job requires, then that's what you're going to need to do until you get another job that you don't have to do that anymore." And you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do to be successful. And you can't just give up, right? You have to have a lot of grit to be successful in life, and regardless of whatever it is, to be a parent, to be a professional, to be an athlete, whatever it is, like you have to have grit, you have to have determination, You've got to work hard. And first and foremost, you've got to network, right? I think the biggest thing that, that's another, big angle for anybody that's young. Network. Go to as many things as you can. Meet as many people as you can, because you have no idea who you're going to run across or what opportunity is going to come from some random interaction that you have with, a person that you meet at a cocktail party a year down the road, 2 years down the road. And especially if you're on the younger side of your career, you should be looking for every opportunity.
Yeah. And that's where you find your mentors, and that's where you find that advisory board that you were talking about earlier, right? So that's I think networking is the biggest part about in our industry if you want to be successful, because there's always alliances to be made. There's always ways to promote, and so many successful people I talk to in this industry were pulled, because of their network, right? Like somebody reached out to me that I worked with previously or I met here, so really important. When you look at 2025, obviously tariffs are on everybody's minds, right? That's a big challenge.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that, tariffs and others, and what are the opportunities that you guys are optimistic about?
Yeah, I think we're not trying to get up. I mean, I think tariffs are on everybody's mind. I've been asked, by countless purchasing agents, that in our channel partners about these things. I mean, we're managing them as best we can, and but I think it's a complicated landscape, and we're going to see how things develop over the next few weeks, and especially once we get into April 2nd or April 7th, we're right around that period of time when the next changes will come. But I think that's just one of those challenges, right? It's not going to affect our strategy and what we're trying to do. It's a cost, and we're going to have to figure out how to deal with it, and how much can we pass along to the consumer, and how much are we going to have to absorb and affect our profitability. So, I mean, there's a lot of different themes there. I think what's exciting about 2025 is the economy seems to be improving. You don't see it in the stock market, but I think you see it in buyer behavior and the conversations that we're having with new clients, new prospects about the projects that they've been dreaming up. And I think there's a lot of excitement around, some of the areas, some of the markets that we're addressing. I think the big things that are exciting for us are, continuing to grow our channel relationships and seeing revenues from, our core kind of select partners, our select channel partner program. Partners like grow year to year. The funnels are better year to year. Our relationships are better year to year. And I think those are the things that are really making us enthusiastic about our business. Now there's definitely some headwinds that are out there. Tariffs are one. We operate in a very competitive industry that is, heavily influenced by the geopolitical situation that we see happening in the newspapers every day. Right. But there's just a tremendous amount of optimism around our company, the brand, and the experiences that people are having with the technologies that we're offering in the market. And I'm excited about some really new products that we're going to debut at InfoComm, which is our big trade event coming up in June. And I think it's going to open some eyes around, who Nanolumens is and how innovative we are as an organization and how we can add value for our partners. And I think that's the main thing that we're very focused on, is how do we add more value for our partners in somewhat of an uncertain time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. On the tariffs thing, like I wish our industry would get together. Like direct view LED is a big ticket item. So obviously a 25% tariff on that size of a product is a big chunk. If the industry would get together and realize, like, hey, like we got to win projects. So if they don't buy the LED, they're not buying the mounting. If they're not buying the mounting, they're not buying the cabling. If they're not buying the cabling, they're not buying the labor. And if everyone would kind of realize, hey, we might all have to chip in and figure out how to get over this 25%. So I think it would help everyone if we realize we're all in it together.
Yeah, keep writing that up. Send that out.
I'm trying, Kurt. I'm trying. I'm banging that drum. Trust me. Anyways, well, look, I think we've kind of covered a lot, and I really appreciate your time and joining me today. I love your story. I'm really always very excited, to represent Nano as one of my clients, because you guys are some of the best people in the industry, and you guys do things the right way, and I appreciate the partnership there. So thanks again for joining me, and for the listeners, thanks for sticking with us this long and listening. If you're still there, please hit the like, hit the subscribe, 5-star review would be great as well, and we'll get with you next week. And in the meantime, good luck with your hunts.